Hello, everyone. Hope you're excited as I am to be here. Well, not just because it's getting close to end of the year and also getting close to Christmas, but because of the amazing webinar we're going to be having today. My name is Kelvin. I'm the partnership manager at Calqulate. And today we're going to be having a webinar on how to successfully wrap up your financial year and also prepare for faster scaling in the coming year. I'm wishing you guys a Merry Christmas and a successful and amazing New Year in advance. Hopefully you will find this webinar very interesting and you can take away some tips that will help you wrap up your financial year and have a proper preparation for faster scaling. All right, with that being said, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Niko. Niko is the CEO and co-founder of Calqulate. He has been a SaaS CFO and financial advisor for tech startups for over 10 years plus now. He has 5 years of experience in accounting services and industry. He has been a finance director in Luxembourg and Geneva. And with his experience working in over 10 countries, he's going to be telling us how he has been doing it in the past in terms of wrapping up every financial year and preparing for a better scaling. So with that being said, I would like to bring on board Niko to the stage. Niko, are you here with us?
Thank you, Kelvin, for the introduction there. And then hello, everybody. Good afternoon in Europe and good morning in the US. I'm in a sunny place right now. I'm in Florida. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here. So then good morning from my side. And then here's basically our agenda for today. We're going to be talking about 2 different groups of items. The first part relates to how to successfully wrap up your financial year and how to basically work more efficiently on a monthly basis so that your fundraising process, your due diligence happens much faster, and how to prepare for audit as well so that your audit is an easy process in the end. So we're going to go through some principles that you can basically do on a monthly basis to make sure that you actually spend a lot less time during the year to do all these processes. The second part relates to basically the communication and the work between the finance team and the marketing team, how they should work together so that the company can achieve faster growth. And we're going to go through some of the usual like financial analytics, marketing analytics, and see how they can be used together so that the marketing team can actually find the best channels so that they can acquire the best customers as well, and then scale the company faster in a profitable way. So we're going to go through 2 different items here, and then we can hop onto the next slide and then start with the part 1. And here, specifically, we're going to go through especially revenue recognition. We have a really cool video to share with you guys, about 2 minutes, just to tell you, what's our idea for revenue recognition. Kelvin, can you go back to the previous slide? I'll explain a couple of things here. So, and then we're going to go through kind of the monthly process that we recommend to keeping your due diligence in order, so that you can basically cut 1 to 2 weeks out of your whole fundraising process when you just spend a couple of minutes per month keeping your documents and reports in order. And the last thing is basically kind of wrapping up the financial year for audit. So let's dive into revenue recognition here. We work with hundreds of SaaS companies, hundreds of startups in the last couple of years. And there's one thing that always comes up. Like basically 95% of companies are struggling with revenue recognition and deferred revenue calculation, and therefore their financial KPIs are not correct. This is the one key thing, or one key issue that is usually not done correctly. And it might sound a little bit like tedious and boring. But the thing is that when you do revenue recognition correctly, it helps you in so many different ways of, fast tracking your fundraising process, building correct KPIs, and fast tracking your audit as well. So spending a few minutes more on a monthly basis will actually help in many ways, and I'll tell you why. So let's take an example. You're a SaaS company and you bill your customers on an annual basis, and let's say that you've now sent an annual invoice of 1,200 euros for an annual license to your customer. Let's imagine that now the annual invoice is 1,200 euros, which means that the monthly revenue is 100 euros per month. And then a lot of companies, especially in the early stages, they would just recognize 1,200 for the first month and then not care what happens in the following months. Revenue recognition means that you basically take the 100 euros, the monthly amount, and then recognize that for each and every month throughout the license, basically, that you sold, the annual license. And if you do this correctly, it means that your MRR statistics are correct all the time. Your profit and loss revenue is correct all the time. Therefore, you can calculate your MRR growth rate and your revenue growth rate correctly all the time, and not like that you only calculate it from the billable amount 1,200, which could go up and down in between months there. So if you do this correctly and your MRR statistics are correct, your growth rate is correct, your valuation multiples are correct for your fundraising process, and investors are going to ask you no matter what, have you done your revenue recognition on a monthly basis? If you haven't, you have to go back in time and do it before they give you money, which might be a considerable delay if you haven't done it in the past, if you only done it for the annual audit or something. So if you do this on a monthly basis, it will help you in so many different ways in the future and save a lot of time. So it's better to spend a couple of minutes on a monthly basis to do revenue recognition correctly. It's really about making sure that your growth rate is accurate, because if you have that kind of like spikes in between your MRR statistics that would be done based on the billable amounts, then your valuation will be incorrect, your growth will be incorrect, and therefore your potential investors won't have a full view on your financial KPIs, and they would be completely lost in kind of defining your valuation as well. So it's much better to keep your books and records correct and do your monthly revenue recognition in order to help in the fundraising process. And the second thing why or how startup companies can keep their fundraising process fast tracked is basically to have their due diligence material in order at all times. So what we, for example, do at Calqulate, and what we've advised our customers to do, is just to allocate about 10 minutes each month to take copy the legal documents of that month. For example, employment contracts, any kind of admin contracts, contracts with vendors, etc., and copy them to a specific due diligence folder that you can keep, for example, in Google Drive. You can keep it in a box folder, no matter where you put it, as long as it's in a shareable format that you can very easily just send a link to that to your potential investors, so that you might get a term sheet really quickly from an investor based on like a 45-minute call, and you get the term sheet, for example, in the evening. Then they want to start due diligence immediately and close the fundraising round, and then wire you the money. But if you don't have your legal due diligence material in order, and for example, if you haven't done your revenue recognition, your accounting on a monthly basis, then there's going to be obvious delays. It can be a 1-week delay, it can be 2-week delay. When you start looking for some legal documents that you signed a year ago, 18 months ago, you're going to be a little bit lost in the process. So basically, just better to allocate just like 10-15 minutes each month to keep that legal DD folder in order. It's a really easy process, and it will basically pay off in the future when you can have a much faster fundraising process. Let's go to the next slide here, and let's talk about the the last item in part one before we jump into questions and then go to the marketing related topics. This basically, the audit process relates to the two previous items as well, so revenue recognition and legal due diligence, because auditors will require both things, but they will only require them once a year, usually. So in any case, for fundraising and audit, you basically should keep your financial reporting and financial monthly close done on a monthly basis at the end of the month, organize revenue recognition, and then my Zoom is doing something funny. Apologies for that. Then basically, keep your books and records in line, correctly done throughout the year at the end of the month, so that you can basically fast track fundraising, fast track audit as well. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's not. It might be just like the whole thing takes like an hour per month to prepare it. So you keep your auditors happy, you keep your current investors happy, your KPIs are correct, and then you basically just can fast track your fundraising process really to a short period of time. So basically, we talked about three different things. They're all in line, and just a couple of tips how you can make your life a lot easier, and then do a couple of things in advance. So the part two concerns scaling, basically, and then how the finance team and the marketing team can and should work together to achieve faster growth for the company, so that they know which channels to target, how to acquire customers, where to get the best customers from a cash flow point of view, from an LTV point of view, from a growth point of view, etc. And how marketing departments should make a clear ask when they're asking for money, and then be more data driven. And lastly, we're going to talk about the usual like KPIs that the marketing team and the finance team could use together, so that they actually can plan their marketing spend much better. So let's hop on to the next slide here. The main like on a high level, the main items are that marketing team and the finance team are really siloed departments. They both use data, and they both use the same kind of data in a way, but they don't use it together here. And often the marketing team would go to the finance team and say, we need more money, we need a budget for this and this reason. And the finance team, especially the CFO, their job is to say, no, I'm not going to give you money. I'm going to keep the books and records in order. I'm going to save the cash balance of the company. No. It's like, I'm going to say no. That's basically what finance teams are doing. And this also includes, marketing and sales budget as well, because even though everybody knows that you need a marketing budget and a sales budget to grow the company, the finance team's main job is to say no. But we're going to be talking about how the marketing team and the finance team can communicate better, so that the finance team says yes. There are some simple elements to that, and the finance team can give really vital feedback to the marketing team how to actually make the company grow faster and with some more cash flows at hand and the more profitable growth. Let's jump to the next slide, and here's the main problem when it comes to the finance team and the marketing team kind of working together. The marketing team and the finance teams are usually working with different sets of data, even though they kind of are the same data, but they work on it separately, and they don't look at the whole customer life cycle on that data. So for example, marketing team is mostly interested in the acquisition part of the customer data. For example, like touch points, channels, and return on investment, and so on, but they kind of stop there. And the finance team is basically starting there. They see, okay, how long did the customer sign up? What are the cash flows? What are the revenue and then eventual churn, basically. So they work on the same spectrum of data, but different parts of the data, which means that the marketing team doesn't know enough what happens cash flow wise and churn wise, etc. And the finance team doesn't know where did the customers come from, which channels, and so on. So there's obvious things that you can improve. And then when you're looking at to the end of the spectrum, you can do much better in the beginning of the spectrum, so that you're actually concentrating on the right channels there. So usually it just means that the marketing team and the finance team are not communicating frequently enough. They don't use the same language, they don't use the same data. That's usually a problem. And the second problem is that the marketing teams usually do not justify their spend enough. They're not looking at the whole life cycle here of the customer data. So they cannot really answer a question like, okay, I want to spend 10,000 euros on customer acquisition, and then the finance team would expect the marketing team to answer a simple question: why? What are you going to get with that money? And the marketing team is not really able to say what is the LTV to CAC ratio, because they don't know what the churn would be. They might not know what are the cash inflows from the customer versus the customer acquisition cost that was spent, and on which channel offers the lowest CAC, lowest churn, but offers the highest LTV and upfront cash flow. So usually marketing teams are not justifying their spend based on these items. And we're going to talk about how the marketing team actually becomes much more knowledgeable about their marketing spend, so that they can actually choose the right channels and the right techniques to acquire customers. Let's go to the next slide over here. And there's a couple of really simple solutions. So the marketing team and the finance team need to use the same data. They basically need to work in the same tool, in the same solution, to look at the whole spectrum of customer data from acquisition all the way to churn, including the different touch points, acquisition, cash flows, revenue, downgrades, updates, churn, and then analyze it per channel. And how to do that is basically organize frequent meetings between the marketing team and the finance team to go through the previous assumptions, and then basically compare that with what actually happened, so that then the current assumptions and forecasts are going to be much more accurate, and then the customer can, or the company can, achieve faster growth. And we've like kind of nailed the concept of chopsticks metrics, or chopsticks KPIs. That means that they basically always come in pair, and basically the pair would mean marketing and financial analytics. And once you join them, you get chopsticks metrics, and it will tell you so much more than a single KPI would tell you. Let's hop on to the next slide. So one really important thing that the finance team wants the marketing team to do better is to make a clear ask. So what is an ask? So it's basically the marketing team is asking for something. They're usually asking for money and access to certain tools. And basically the marketing team should always quantify the marketing spend, quantify the starting point, quantify the results all the way to the end, and answer simple questions like, what will we achieve with this spend? So we've broken that process down to two different parts. First, there's the input, the ask. What do you want, and why do you want it? Okay, so we need an additional budget of 8,000 euros. How are you going to spend it? So we're going to spend it in a tool A. And why are you going to spend it, or why do you need it? Okay, here's the reason. Currently, we have this issue. It takes 3 days to onboard a new customer, and our leads are not converting. Okay, that's a reason. We have a budget for that. And then the output is also extremely important. And usually this is lacking from the ask. Like, what are you going to get with that money? What are the results? Okay, if we buy that tool A, it will basically reduce our onboarding time radically. This example, 90%. What is the impact on revenue? Okay, we forecast that we increase our MRR by 40% because we're making the onboarding time shorter. When will it happen? It will happen in 3 months. And what is the growth impact? Okay, we'll get to our next stage in funding. We can hire more people, etc. So this is a really good ask. It really clearly defines what you need, when, how much does it cost, and what do you get when you spend this money. This is how marketing teams and finance teams should work together, because it's clearly the growth point of view. There's clearly a revenue point of view and a budget point of view, and the finance team needs to take both cash in and cash out revenue and expenses as part of their budgets and cash flow forecasts, and then they can maybe forecast a higher revenue based on a little bit higher expenditure as well, and those need to go hand in hand. Let's move on to the next slide here, and we're going to ask a couple of questions, like, you know, or make a couple of example questions what the marketing team and the finance team should be asking each other when they're having these regular meetings. And they're only, you know, done beforehand because, you know, we want to improve the communication, and marketing teams and the finance team should basically work better together. So let's jump on to the next slide. So we briefly discussed, you know, the KPI pairs, the chopstick metric. So this is a little bit like a, you know, a little summary before we jump into the question. So KPIs always need to be reviewed in pairs or in multiples. Like one KPI usually doesn't tell you anything, like what's your CAC or what's your LTV, doesn't really tell you anything on its own. But when you compare LTV to CAC, it actually starts telling you something. Or when you review like CAC per channel, for example, there's different elements and different dimensions to it. So you need to ask certain questions based on these KPIs and the relationship, so that you get to the really to the, you know, bottom of the topic, that you understand why certain things happened. Did you change something in your onboarding process? Did you have a new campaign or something? Why did it have an impact on KPIs? And we're going to look at 5 distinct examples just to kind of build a narrative around the communication between the marketing team and the finance team here. So CAC, customer acquisition cost, is really an important topic, but it becomes much more insightful if you can split the CAC by channel here. If you're acquiring customers through inbound, outbound, LinkedIn ads, different conferences, etc., it's good to analyze what was the CAC for each of those channels. How many customers did you acquire? How much did they cost, etc.? Are there some major differences there? And for example, if the channel where you're experiencing the highest CAC at the moment, does it also have the best performance? And is it actually, you know, worthwhile investing in that channel or not? Let's go to the other example, which is the flip side of the same thing. So this is LTV by channel. This is just the other side of the CAC per channel part, because if you have a channel that has a high CAC, it should have a high LTV as well, lifetime value to CAC ratio. And if the ratio is not correct, you might want to then rethink your investment in that channel. It's okay if you have low CAC and low LTV, as long as the ratio between them is okay. And it's okay to have a high CAC and a high LTV, as long as the ratio in between them is okay. Then you can make really accurate investment decisions, like which channels you're going to invest in. Let's jump into the third example over here. And then this is where things get really interesting from a cash flow point of view and growth point of view. When you think about what's the CAC payback time per channel. So customer acquisition cost payback time per channel, because usually cash flows are the thing that make the company grow faster. If you basically acquire customers really quickly and they pay you upfront and you have this free lump of cash available after acquiring each customer, you can just spend more money in customer acquisition, hire more salespeople, spend more money on LinkedIn ads to just accelerate your growth rate like this. So it's good to analyze channel by channel what is the cash flows that the customer pays you. Are through certain channels, are we only acquiring, say, self-serve customers who pay monthly, and from other channels we acquire customers that pay annually? Okay, it's fine. So what about if the CAC in those two channels is very different, and then when the customer pays either monthly or annually, the CAC payback time might be very different as well? What about if you have a channel that has a high CAC but also high cash flows, customer pays annually, you have a free lump of cash, versus maybe another channel where the CAC payback time is much longer. It might be like 12 months, for example. It means that you're not going to be able to scale your customer acquisition in that channel because it offers very slow payback times. You have to make this kind of like growth assumptions channel by channel as well, and think about what's the CAC payback time per channel. Let's go to the fourth example here. ICP, so ideal customer profile, is what the sales teams and marketing teams are frequently talking about, that they want to target the right kind of ICPs. There can be several ICPs for a company. So an ICP, can be a particular customer, particular company that fits in certain criteria. They might be in a certain funding stage. They might have a certain number of employees. They might have a certain number of revenue, for example. And then you can basically analyze, for example, your CAC and your churn by ICP. Like if you acquired certain kind of customers, how much did it cost to acquire them, and what is the lifetime value, and what is the churn in that segment. And then do the same kind of analysis for another ICP. And then you can make better investment decisions in targeting only certain ICPs, and then forget the rest if they're not profitable. Here, this is really important for making profitable growth decisions and profitable investment decisions, that you're basically doubling down on the ICPs, doubling down on the certain channels where you find the best ICPs, so that you can basically have the lowest possible CAC and the highest possible cash inflows and LTV. And those are the decisions that every company should be basically looking at. Let's go to the last example here. So we wanted to basically have a higher level KPI as well, comparing the cost of sales to net revenue retention. Usually in your cost of sales, you would include your customer support costs and customer success costs as well. And then when you compare that total investment to your customer facing roles to your net revenue retention and, for example, churn, then you can basically analyze that, is it worthwhile investing that money? Do we actually get a lower churn and a higher net revenue retention and for example, customer retention? And if yes, then basically try to see how much money you have to add to get an even higher amount, and then compare them against each other. And then basically NRR, net revenue retention, is a key thing in a company's valuation process. And if you get to like 120% NRR, 130% NRR, your valuation can be 4 times higher than having a 90% NRR. The difference doesn't sound very, very high, but it's really like a crucial part of the valuation process. So usually investing in customer support and customer success makes a lot of sense in that case. Let's jump into the next slide. So we've gone through like 5 distinct examples how you can compare the usual financial analytics to marketing analytics and combine them in a really smart way that should be able to give you insights on how to find the right kind of customer, how to find the right kind of channel, and then doubling down on those channels in order to get a really healthy set of KPIs and grow much faster in a cash flow positive way. So this is what basically financial analytics should tell you. They basically should help the sales and marketing team to burn money in a sustainable way in order to make good investment decisions. Let's kind of fast track these slides. Here we have a couple of interesting slides coming up as well. In order to scale, you need to burn money. That's just the reality. You need the sales and marketing team to work hard, acquire customers, etc. Let's go to the next slide over here. Burning money is super easy here. So here's the usual head of growth or marketing director here wants to burn money, and then wants to acquire customers, and the CFO is shouting at him that no, you're not going to do that, and then this discussion needs to get better. But if you burn money in a smart way and in a profitable way, you're going to be able to build a growth engine. You're going to build a growth engine that's cash flow positive and profitable, and then you're going to basically grow much faster. That's the whole idea why finance teams and marketing teams should work together. And financial analytics can help to decide through collected data in the past how that money should be spent on. If you need new staff, do you need your staff in sales team, or do you need your staff in marketing team? Should you be basically acquiring customers through inbound or outbound? Or if it's inbound, which kind of channels? Should it be conferences, events, LinkedIn ads, etc.? And then combining all that data, you can actually make insightful decisions how to grow much faster here. And we have the couple of slides to compare, what's a profitable growth and what's not. And it all boils down to having the lifetime value to customer acquisition cost ratio very healthy. It should be ideally more than 3. So customer lifetime value is 3 times higher than the customer acquisition costs, because otherwise it's probably not the right time to invest in growth. If we go to the next slide over here, basically all marketing and sales activities, so all salaries, CRM system spend, marketing spend, etc., it should bring in eventually 3 times or more as much revenue as it costs to generate that revenue here. And what we've gone through these examples is marketing teams and sales teams should justify their headcount and expenses by creating a clear ask here. And usually that justification or ask is missing from a finance team point of view here. And we have a little chart to clarify the golden rule here, is that if your LTV to CAC ratio is more than 3 to 1, it's time to grow. It's time to accelerate. It's time to spend, invest in, social media marketing, invest in customer acquisition, and then check that ratio is still healthy in the future. But if that LTV to CAC ratio is less than 3 to 1, it's probably better to focus and sharpen the ICP. Maybe create a better onboarding flow, create some more features in your product, and then invest more money in growth. And then once you basically have your KPIs in order, then it's good to double down and start accelerating. I believe that was our last slide. I would like to wish everybody happy holidays, and try to relax, try to be present with your families and loved ones, and then take some time off and then recharge your batteries, because the new year will always be really exciting. There will be new things to do. You might be closing your books with your auditor and board. So try to take some time off for the rest of the year, and then recharge your batteries and enjoy the holidays, and then enjoy the Christmas food. It's always lovely to see a big ham or big turkey or whatnot on the table, and then sing some Christmas carols, and then just be present and be offline with your loved ones. That's my recommendation. That's my wish for all of you there. And then thank you for being part of the webinar here. We had a good time. We've had a good time in 2021, and then I wish you all the very successful year of 2022.
From all of us in Calqulate, we are wishing you a Merry Christmas and an awesome New Year in advance. Thank you so much for joining us in this webinar, and I hope you guys will be joining us also in our future webinars next year. Thank you once again for your time, and that will be all for now. Cheers.